have noticed an interesting thing during my years in the sewing business. Babies and young children often motivate someone to either learn to sew or to return to sewing after setting it aside many years before. It is difficult to resist the brief season of time for making cuddly baby blankets, precious day gowns with sweet embellishments, or toddler-sized fancy clothes. My guests today have brought projects that are sure to inspire the beginning sewer or challenge the veteran, and we will learn techniques to embellish even the most ordinary part of a garment. Just like childhood, our time is passing quickly. Let's get started, and welcome to my sewing room. I have 5 little granddaughters that would adore this nightgown. So cute and so many fun sewing techniques. Made out of 100% cotton knit. Look at the shell tucks. I'm going to show you the magic here. The shell tucks have elastic to give a little extra pull around the neckline. Look at the beautiful ballerina shoes. My little granddaughters love ballet too. The sleeves are fabulous. The shell tucks and then some more stitches automatically put the elastic into the sleeves with elastic thread. First of all, you cut your sleeve out and then turn it up, and this is the shell tuck with elastic thread to give us our first little elasticized area around the bottom of the sleeve. Next, other kinds of decorative stitches also done with elastic thread give us the rest of our sleeve elastic. And the shell tuck on the area that goes around the neckline also has that a little elastic to give it that special fit. I am so very happy to have as my guest today my very close friend Sue Hausmann. Sue is the host of the PBS show America Sews. Sue, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Martha. It's always great to be here and great ideas. You know, we've been so inspired by the shell tucks that you see on antiques. And here's an example, of course, done by hand, maybe the turn of the last century. Or I have a blouse here, Martha, that was my grandma's. Aww. And it's done in a nylon. But again, those shell tucks are done by hand. But today, we're going to create shell tucks, and I'm sure you probably have done those before with the blind hem on your machine, but we're going to do it with some elastic thread in the bobbin. Now, Martha, when you sent us this challenge, I thought, well, why not a little nightgown? And Patty Jo Larson helped me elongate the little t-shirt top and add the sleeves to the longer length. And so here you see that cotton, which I feel it's really great to put the time into making kids' jammies because they're so comfy, and if you use quality knit, they're so easy to make. So we're using an elastic thread wound on the bobbin, and you wind that just the same way. And then we're using a 30 weight, not the embroidery weight, but a 30 weight with one of the pretty rayon threads on the top, and then one of the guide feet. Now here's the amazing thing, and all machines have these today, feet with little flanges to guide. And so that makes it so easy to sew straight lines. And what we're going to be doing is sewing right along this fold. And how about putting in a stretch needle? Because a stretch needle actually will help you sew on those knit fabrics. So let's pick up this little sleeve and go to the machine. And in the bobbin already, that elastic thread on the top, that little bit heavier weight, and this particular foot, what's really interesting about this particular foot is that it was designed for 5/8 inch seams. Okay. So don't always think that what the instructions say for a foot are what you have to do, because I love the fact that it has a bunch of little red guidelines and you can use the different guidelines. Now let's just stop there and raise the presser foot. I will say you probably won't want to use your thread cutter when you have elastic thread in the bobbin, because that could dull it pretty quickly. But here you see the little tucks along that edge, and now simply selecting a different stitch, and again with that thread, that's the elastic thread in the bobbin, we're going to stitch another row, this time using the edge of the flange as our guide. And you can see how that just stitches along. Well, once you have stitched all of those, you'll see that if you go to the ironing board, Martha, and steam it, the elastic thread will kind of go and scrunch up. And that'll give you this nice little elasticized casing effect at the bottom of your sleeve. And then you simply sew your sleeve seam and you have a great little sleeve on the bottom of your nightgown sleeve. Isn't that cool?
Oh, it's so pretty too.
And as you mentioned, why not make pretty shell tucks around the ribbing too? And here you see that the same technique with that first stitch is one of those little shell stitches around the neck will create that darling little ribbing that's on that cute little nightgown. And again, the nice heavyweight knit, which is so comfy for the kids to wear.
All right, Sue, that is just absolutely fabulous. And now Sue has some sewing inspirations to share with you. Just fabulous. So tell us about it. Oh, fun.
Isn't this right? Well, this is the latest craze. You're not going to believe it. Needle felting, or it's called embellishing. It's called punching. Lots of different things, but texture. That's really what it's all about. And here you see some roving. I'm going to be showing you that. Some yarns. Some over here, some fluffy fabrics even that can be felted in by simply punching in the center with the felting machine, and then free motion and embroidery designs on top. So you're combining all your different mediums. All the different
denim
machines.
Jackets.
Denim
my
jacket.
goodness.
See, any natural fiber will accept the felting. So here again, here's a wool plaid fabric and some yarn. And in this case, again, some yarn here, but then free motion around it. So the combination of free motion sewing, which now is really an artsy thing to do. Look at the back.
Yeah, it's so wonderful.
And again, the purple plaid felt at the back. I'll bet you our viewers have some scraps of wool that they could be using for this. Isn't that cool?
Oh,
now here again, these are
kind of an open weave sweater.
These are all
I'm surprised you can use it on that.
Sure can, because you see, it's not a heavy buildup. And these are new embroidery designs, especially for using with felting so that they don't cover everything up. So here's a combination of wool flowers cut out, of roving punched in, and then an embroidery design with the rayon thread. All of that combined to give that textured effect and take a sail sweater top and make it something really spectacular.
Or maybe something we don't wear anymore. Like that. Oh,
sure,
my goodness, make something new and fabulous and designer.
Go in the closet and look for something that needs to be, I say, revived. Now here, start by felting in the roving and then do the embroidery over it and add some of the hot fix crystals to just give it just a little bit of sparkle. This actually is a ready-to-wear jacket, but you know, it's got a technique that we could use. It's like a boiled wool fabric. Look at those raw edge strips that created the binding. Isn't that cool?
Oh, and look at the back on this one. Oh, it is so pretty.
Neat? Yeah, just that texture and that whole floating look of the wool roving. Would you like to see how?
Oh, please.
Okay.
I can't wait. And now Sue is going to show us how quick and how easy this is to do.
You got it.
I can't wait to see how you do this.
Oh, well, and I can't wait to show you and to show the viewers all about needle punching, felting, embellishing, whatever you want to call it. That's what's on my jacket.
I love it. I love it.
This skirt was the inspiration for the jacket. I don't have it on because I knew you wouldn't see it, but the colors were picked out of it, and you can see pieces of wool and pieces of roving all punched into this jacket, and then some decorative stitches put over it. So sky is the limit. And of course, we think of it often for purses and pillows and jackets. And you start with just fiber, texture and fiber. And here you see yarns, you see rovings. Now, roving, Martha, is...
what is it? Yeah.
Well, it's actually sheep's wool that has been dyed and processed, but it hasn't been woven into yarn yet, or spun into yarn yet. Like these were the same thing, except that this one's been spun now into yarn. But here's a silk roving type hanky that can also be punched. And here's wool fabric that can also be cut. You can see lots of different options. There are wool scraps. Now, this side's pretty, punched in, no thread, but look at the wrong side. This could be the right side, the subtle side. And here again, the roving, but here you see the side that's more subtle. How about the yarn, but the side that's more subtle? So the opportunities are virtually endless. And as I said, people think of it for purses and things. And here's a purse that actually shows you some pieces of wool. Now, works best when you're punching into natural fibers, into wool, into silk, into cotton, but you just want to try it, just experiment. And so our project today, our quick little project, is a baby blanket. Now, what a special little baby blanket. Or it could be for a special doll. And when you want to make a baby blanket like this, we did it in strips. And the reason we did it in strips was we actually thought people might have scraps that they'd like to use. And we cut a scallop along the edge and did 10-inch wide strips with a scallop along the outside edge and then a scallop along both edges of the centerpiece, and then, of course, the other piece. So we're ready to get started here on our baby blanket. And what are we going to put on it? Well, how about some roving? This is the way it comes, and often in color combinations that go together. And what you need to do is pull it apart. And people always tend to use more than they think they need. So let's take and just put wisps of roving. So we just lay it in place under the needles. Now there are 5 needles. No thread on the top, no thread on the bobbin. There's no bobbin, no thread.
No thread.
The needles are actually needles that, I know. See how this is punching in? The needles themselves are barbed so that they punch into the fabric. And by the way, it's guarded, so you can't get your hand in the way there. And just run at a fast speed. And when you stop, wait for those needles to come up before you stop. So now you'll see that we have some roving in place. Let's look at the other side, because you see, you get that very faint effect. Both sides are beautiful. Now, how about some flowers? Take some pieces of yarn and shape your little flower petals however you want to do it. And again, I'm doing this quickly, Martha, just to kind of give you the feel for the fact that this is easy. And so just put your flower petals in place and then put them under the needles. And what we like to do you can do this and baste them in place. You can actually lay them down. You could put them down, but just go over them. And then once they're kind of, when I say base, there's no thread, of course, but you're going to just be putting them down and then go back over them, and you can punch to your heart's content until you have them in just as much as you want them in place. But you see how we're just putting that all down in place. And then, well, how about a piece of wool felt? Cut a little circle, and that could be put over the center of the flower. The other thing about this is that's so fantastic that you just can keep adding, keep adding, keep adding. And so you want another petal on your flower? Go ahead and put another petal on your flower. You want a different color of the roving? Go ahead and put a different color. And you can see that you just keep going. Now, if we take another look at our quilt, you'll see that we have some loops of yarn. So that was very easy to do. You'll see that the binding is created with just strips of yarn laid along the edge. Now, one thing on a baby piece, because a baby that would use this blanket, we kind of think this is a special one for christening or something, but a baby that might use this blanket might pull at it. And so this felting would be pretty darn tough to pull out the yarn, but we wouldn't want that to happen with a baby. So if you're making it for the baby, you can see that we've gone back over free motion and actually stitched on our regular sewing machine with some pretty thread all of those pieces down even better. But here's the other thing. The wrong side is just as pretty as the right. Isn't that fantastic?
It's amazing.
And so what you want to do is take again and decide what you're going to lay in place and simply stitch over it. And again, the great part is you can't get your fingers under there.
Oh, that's because it's guarded.
It's guarded. You can't hurt yourself. I'll tell you something. The young people are having just the best time with this. We had a little young lady who was making project after project. She's making pictures. But you see, you just loop your yarn any way you want to loop it and just go over it. And by the way, if you base it down and you don't like it, you can be sure you stop with those needles in the highest position. You actually can pull it out until you've punched it really well. And that's a nice thing for people who maybe want to just baste it all down with kind of a loose punch and then go back over it. And you'll see the more we go over it, the more that it punches in. Now, these strips were put together with the felting. So in other words, the felting put the pieces together. Just lay them in place, the 3 rows, and felt up and down, and that will put them together. You can put wool binding on that way too. But you'll see now, as you see the starting to come through, the more we punch, the more you will see on the other side.
No thread in either needle or bobbin.
No thread.
And so you were talking about combining that with machine embroidery.
Yep, that's what you saw on a lot of those jackets.
Okay, so you did the machine embroidery first and then the felting after that, or vice versa, or both?
There are special collections where you can actually put down the roving and then do the embroidery over it. Isn't that fun?
Oh,
so I hope that your viewers will have fun trying the felting machine, combining it with decorative stitches maybe, combining it with yarns, all kinds of fun things you can do.
Oh, this is pure free motion art that is EASY, easy.
That's right.
Oh, how much fun. I just want to get in the middle of that
Can't
and start roving. We like that, don't we? There are no mistakes. Thank you so much, Sue. Oh, how much fun we've had with you here. And now I have some machine embroidery techniques for you. I'm so glad to welcome Denise Applegate. Denise is the Sales and Creative Manager of Embroidery Designs for Cactus Punch. Denise, welcome to the show.
Thanks, and thanks for having me. I'm so excited to show you some cutwork buttonholes and show the audience the cutwork buttonholes. So the blouse up here, if you look, has little flowers that are actually cutwork. And what I did was open up just one of the petals to make it a buttonhole.
Wonderful idea for our wonderful oh, Denise, this is exciting.
It's pretty exciting to me also. If we go back to the jacket, one more thing I would like to point out is that we have wing needle here. So you can also use a wing needle to accent your jacket. And I use the Cutwork Embroidery Designs, a pre-wound bobbin, and you can use a cotton thread or a rayon thread, and there's the wing needle, along with a special scissors to do your little cut.
Okay.
So the first step would be is to cut out your blouse and to have the pieces here ready to go. These are the embroidered pieces for the blouse. So if I set this here and lay this out on the blouse, you'll notice that we extended the piece to add the little cutwork buttonholes.
I got you.
Okay. Then we can use software. So I have embroidery software, or we can do one buttonhole at a time that we mark with a specialty pen. So in the software, I lined up my buttonholes so that we could do this and have them all at once. So on the machine here, I have a little hoop that allows me to move back and forth and begin sewing. I've already done the pre-work on it where it does the outline of the buttonhole and the cut work. And once I begin sewing, it will do that whole flower and we'll have our little buttonhole for our blouse.
Okay. You're going to do that, and then you just cut out the place where you're actually going to put the button. Is that correct?
That's correct. Now, in this flower, you could cut out all the petals, but I just decided to cut out one of them, and the one buttonhole spot for the flower petal is where my button will go through.
Well, that's really all you would want to cut out, I would think, on a jacket, because jackets, get some pull and some wear. Well, this is absolutely fascinating and a whole new way of using cut work and the cut work designs. Oh, Denise, that is fascinating. It's so elegant with the ecru on ecru, too.
Well, and the other thing is that the card that we have has hearts and different things, so it has other things that could be used for the buttonholes besides just the flower.
Oh, Denise, thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Once again, it's always a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
And next, I have some quilting ideas to share with you. I love heirloom quilts. I especially love heirloom quilts for babies. This happens to be for William Joseph, my youngest grandchild. And his name is on the top, birth date information. The one I want to share with you today is this beautiful, beautiful heart in the center, and that says, "I love you, William." And it has a beautiful lace shaping with the ecru lace shape, and I am especially fond of these crossed double needle pin tucks, which are so easy to do. And now I'm going to share with you just how easy they really are to make the crossed double needle pin tucks. I happen to love heirloom pin tucks, and when I'm working on batiste such as this quilt, I use either a 1.6 or a 2.0 needle. a double needle, twin needle. I also like to do a reasonably short stitch, like 1.5, at most 2.0 when I'm doing double needle pin tucks. Okay, I like to use a pin tuck foot, and here I have one that has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 grooves, and the this is what a double needle looks like. And I used to think a double needle meant your machine had to have 2 slots for a needle. Not true. It goes into the needle slot just like a regular needle, but it has 2 needles. Now the first thing you're going to do on doing a large piece of double needle pin tucks is to draw a line for you to guide with. So I've drawn a line down the middle, and then make the first double needle pin tuck. After making one, then all you do is take your little grooved foot and put it in the groove, depending on how far apart you want them to be. You can move your needle back and forth, or your groove. You really can make several different combinations there. Okay, you'll make your first row, and then you'll come on over, you'll make this whole row. After you finish all of those rows, which you see I have all those rows finished, I come back in and draw another line down the center. I obviously have to have a guiding point for my next set of pin tucks, because I'm going to come in and do the pin tucks to make the cross pin tucks all the way across that piece. After I have stitched, now remember I just drew 2 lines, one in the center for the first ones. After all of those were finished, one in the center here, and then I make all of my double needle pin tucks, and then I shape my lace heart, sew the outside down, slip this strip underneath my lace shaped heart, the whole square piece, and then I will sew on the inside of that heart, and then I'll come to the back, trim it away, and that's the way I put a magical piece of crossed double needle pin tucks inside that heart. Very easy to do. And so, you know what, pin tucks are also French sewing on a budget, because you really just have to have some time and a double needle. You don't have to have lots and lots of extra lace and supplies for pin tucks, and that's another reason they're one of my favorite embellishments. And now I have a beautiful piece from my vintage collection to share with you, which does have tucks on it. This petticoat has a wonderful story. I'll kind of make it brief, and then I'll show you the petticoat. Joe and I were at Bermondsey Market, which opens at 5 o'clock in London. It was very, very cold. It was in the wintertime, and Joe was not really too happy to go to a London market at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I promised him there would be some breakfast there, I felt sure. And we got there, and the only breakfast that was there was a stand, kind of a stand that had baked potatoes and pork and beans, and it did have coffee. And I said, well, Joe, you can get your breakfast over there. And he said, a baked potato and pork and beans for breakfast? I said, baby, you're going to love it. Anyway, this is a petticoat, not a skirt. And the reason I know that is because it has a gathering, it has a casing, and it has a gathering thread run through it. And really, the skirts did not have gathering threads. This petticoat was so dirty that morning I bought it in London. It was filthy, and I thought it had a lot of potential, but it was really dirty. It was kind of piled in a pile, but I knew how to wash it. This is one of the most beautiful pieces in my collection. It has the beautiful, beautiful lace insertion, French insertion, and I love the way that the ruffles come down in a point, so pretty, and then a pretty feather stitching on top of the ruffles. Let me just hold this up a little bit. Then there's an under petticoat to the petticoat. You see there's a very simple part. I promised you some more tucks over here. Here are the 3 tucks at the bottom. And I just wish we could get lace that looked like this today. Absolutely beautiful. I had to do a few repairs on this slip because remember, it was so dirty that morning. But I told Joe, as he was eating his pork and beans and a baked potato and a cup of coffee, they didn't even have a Diet Coke for me, which is what I wanted. But anyway, I said, Joe, this trip out here was all worth it to get this one wonderful petticoat. I might add, too, that these petticoats are very much in high fashion now, even reproducing these petticoats. You look in any high fashion magazine and you'll see these young girls wearing petticoats like this with leather boots, a big wide belt, and even a suede jacket. These white petticoats or reproductions are very, very, very in fashion right now. So for your younger members of the family, they'll enjoy one of these. Thank you so much for joining me in my sewing room today. Won't you come back next time?